I'll never hear that again from my daughter. Anyway, okay. The first thing I want to say is that I work all the time with Jim Cuthbert, who is not here today, although he was bought a wig for Halloween. He looked really wonderful, like a witch in it, but he refused to wear a wig to come today. As Margaret said, both of us are very keen, have always been interested in Scottish independence, but I'm not here today to try and persuade you to vote for independence. I take it for granted you're all interested in independence, but it's not my task to try and prove that it's going to be an easy ride. It's going to be far from an easy ride. But the ride, if we stay within the UK, I will show you, is no easy matter. In fact, that was one of the big problems that was wrong in the referendum. In the speeches that Alex Salmond gave or Nicola Sturgeon gave, it was assumed, if you remember, that we would remain part of the British Council. And in that, they probably lost more votes than one could count. It was something that was said without any proper backing, without paying attention to the actual realities. So I'm not standing up here for a political party. Okay, the next thing I want to say is that while I'm the one that's mainly talking this morning, I'm well aware that this room is full of experts on umpteen different subjects, and the very fact that you're here means that you have a very active brain and interested in things. You yourselves will be great contributors if you just wish to participate, and I'd be very happy about that. Well, you all recognise this, I would say moron, at the top of the picture here. He and Tony Blair strode the world for long enough, and his most famous remark, other than the one about was indeed that it's the economy stupid. And I think almost everybody here would say that's nonsense. We took it in at the time, but it is nonsense. The most important thing is to have a set of values that you want to have, and then you see how you achieve those objectives. And as you try to achieve those objectives, one of them would be through economic matters, but it should not be the driving force. The driving force is to try and get some quality of life. So, for example, the one that's likely to hit me very often in the next few months is the fact that closing all the public toilets, as far as one can see in most places in Scotland. At my age, that's a disaster. What sort of society is it? Is it a barbaric society that would do such things in the interests of cutting local authority budgets? And if you think they're being cut, you haven't seen anything yet. As the Office of Budget Responsibility has shown, things are going to get very, very much worse. So the first thing is, I'd like you to sit down with a bit of paper in front of you and the group that you're sitting with, and if there's only a few of you wouldn't mind turning round and joining a group beside you, because there's too many groups, and think of what is it that you actually would like from society that the economy could help with. So I'm not actually interested in a variety of things in life.
I said I've got a pen in my bag.
Pens, there's stuff here.
Right, there's pens and paper on that table. No, well, if I don't know what's going to happen, so if you want to go and get a pen and a bit of paper, I'll carry on filming. Excuse me. There's somebody giving it out. You'll get a pen in my bag.
We're doing this as a group. So yes. Sorry.
I will participate and give my what's happened first, but I'll carry on filming as well. But it's just to upload it for the people that can't get here today.
Kind of what a fair society is.
Inside. Oh, I can't write. I've got the.
I think like a basic income
There's a Scandinavian country does that kind of thing as well. Everybody gets a basic income. It's not through a benefit. Everybody gets it working or not, and they get that minimum payment. And then it's up to you if you want more than that, you can go work, or if you want to live off that.
The minute the churches started, they would put it work, but they never shared the results of the pilot recently because they didn't think it was a good idea.
The thing is, like, even if you're a feminist, the point being of it is not to shove everybody out to it's to have a choice. And so, if you allow somebody a basic income, male or female, if you allow them a basic income, you give them the choice of whether to stay at home or not. At the moment, they've gone from giving people a choice to try and shove everybody, regardless of circumstances, into work. But then they complain about single pay. So if you're the only parent in a family and you then have to work, you're working to pay your childcare costs, your kids. So if you skimp on that, your kids haven't got anybody there. But you can't win the way that the government and socially everything's set up. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Sorry, something I forgot to say in my intro that I'm going to say now, because there were too many things to say and it was always guaranteed I was going to forget something. We will be taking some photos today and we are filming today. So if there's anybody who does not want to be filmed or photographed, can you make yourself known to Susan or Linda, these two lovely ladies here, or to me, or to Wendy? You are Wendy, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes. So that so that we don't film you or photograph you. Okay, super. Right, I'm going to pass back to Mom.
Right. Okay. Now, we've only got a few minutes because there's so much to cover, and I can't therefore have you coming up with 8 different ideas, all of which I know will be important. But you must accept that if you're the first group that's going to be talking, you will have covered everything that the last group is going to be talking. It's not anything. So I'm only going to take 2 from every single group. And if somebody feels at the end there's a vital bit that they forgot, in fact, if you don't mind, I'll only take 1 at the beginning. I know in the last group, turned out the first group, about 8, and then there were no ideas and everything else. So if you feel with your list that they're not all covered, you can come in again at the end. So can I begin with this group, please? Just one, the first most important item you've got, and Maggie's going to record.
Well, we just said that the basics and importance of food, shelter, health, companionship were our 4 top kind of things, and then we spoke about all of these different things.
Right. If you wouldn't mind afterwards giving Maggie the notes, and I will collect them. Yes. Next group, please.
One of the things that we thought was quite important was the idea of equity and income, and thinking about a basic income guarantee
So you're like George Osborne, you believe we're all in it together. Wonderful. That's the one. The next group, please.
Free education and lifelong. Access to free healthcare.
Yeah. Thank you. The next group.
We had social housing and encouraging small businesses to thrive and grow.
Thank you. Next one.
Thank you very much. We had environmentally sustainable, so building more of the sustainable.
Can everyone hear that? Looking for an environmentally sustainable society. Next group.
We want. We think we should provide a good start for our kids in schools with positive aspirational movement.
Thank you. Next group.
We did a lot of those things, but we wanted to use the money we've got more fairly and have equality of opportunity. That's two.
Thank you.
Social care.
Part of society and part of the community. Sorry?
We feel dignified to be old age.
I would know what old age is.
Most of what's been covered we've had, but we also put down we should have more control over the utilities, especially clean energy.
Yeah. Okay, does anyone feel, thank you, does anyone feel that there's something vitally important on their list that we've not covered? Can I start with the...
I would like us to see health as a social issue and not purely as a health issue.
Right? Yes.
More time for family and community.
Yeah, we had land ownership, again, equality of land ownership in Scotland.
Land reform.
I would like to see more chocolate childcare and early education. And it's not a women issue, it's a society issue.
Indeed. Thank you. And that's from an education expert.
We can't hear that lady.
I didn't hear it. This lady here was speaking about education.
I was saying that we would like to see more proper full-time childcare and early education, and it's not a woman issue, it's a society issue.
Yeah. Yes. Totally.
The right to work or contribute at least the basic minimum wage, so no long-term unemployment.
So I didn't get the end, sorry.
No long-term unemployment.
No long-term unemployed. Yes.
We thought flexibility in working practices for mums and dads, so that there was a level of choice of either childcare or parental care, and we tied it into the basic income guarantee.
And you had another point?
Publication of tax returns.
Yes.
Yes.
And end to 0 hour contracts.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Company accountability when it comes to tax as well.
Okay. I want you to bear these in mind. I hope you've taken cognizance among all of you of what was said, because now we're going to consider on our way through how our country works and is it actually performing the way that you would like it to perform, and are the policies that are being introduced just now moving us towards achieving these aims that you would like for our society. And just before I go on, there's one other thing I would like you to record, and just do it individually, and that is what items to do with economics you have seen either in social media, the press, or television since before Christmas to just now that you think might affect your economy, your own life. These could include the revelations last week on HSBC. This lady was saying, let's see the tax returns. They could include what's happening in Athens.
loopholes for companies.
But I would like you to try and coordinate the way they could include, for example, what happened to the Swiss franc when it broke its relationship with the euro. They could include what's happening in Russia with the fall in the price of oil, and for Russia you can also add in Venezuela and Scotland. Now I just want you to think about it, okay? I just want you to think about this just now because it will come up later. Right, we better move on. Is there anything, by the way, that happened that I haven't blabbed about already?
The astonishing thing in the news recently has been councils cutting the number of hours that they're teaching, that links back to public,
And there was a cutting of the toilets.
And food bags. They're cutting down on food bags. Free food bags. Imagine that we're going to be littered with dog food.
Anything else?
Very important.
Iceland chilling their bankers.
Excellent. Anything else? Yes.
Possibility of interest rates starting to rise again.
Probably it's very good in Europe. If you have any national plan.
Yes,
and
so
whether
problem
the
for
foundation,
Europe.
the foundation with 60% of Scots who should have a foundation vote about the exit.
Can't be here at the back.
I was talking about the EU referendum exit or not, in and out, and the 60% of Scottish people want to have the four nations in the UK to vote separately, and etc. So that's important.
I'm moving on now. Sorry, Linda.
I was just going to, I don't know that if there is any kind of correlation, which is why I'm here to find out, but is the threat from ISIS, does that have any bearing on the economy?
Certainly. Right, okay. Oh, sorry, I'm moving on to the next slide.
ISIS are changing funded by the UK and US government.
We're now going to look at how we measure how well we're doing, and unfortunately, if I took a tape measure and measured you, any particular measurement, I would get an exact reading. But if we measure how the economy is doing, unfortunately, as you will see today, we don't always get an exact anything. Going to then look at how, with these deficient statistics, we're going to look at how Scotland and the UK is and has been doing. We're going to look at the risks of Scotland going it alone, which, as I said, were not properly covered in the referendum. And you do need to know what the risks are, because if you don't, then you're taking a tumble off a cliff. And you can't use your brain to work out what actions you can take to minimise the risks. And finally, and I think I want to try and leave as much time as possible for some areas where Women for Independence could actually be very actively involved, and instead of listening to an old so-and-so like me for the morning, actually be using the information you've got to give you the starter to find out more detail in matters and then produce your own action plan. Okay. The first thing to think about is I'll just check that. Okay. The first thing that I'm going to start with is some of the major concepts that are spoken about in television or the radio. And the first one is gross domestic product. What exactly is it? Well, it's an annual running total of how the economy is performing. But if we had taken this, for example, in the 1950s, a picture of how well the economy is performing, most of us and our output would not be in the picture. All the work that women do in their own homes, etc., the washing, the cleaning, etc., and childcare would not have been in GDP at that particular time. It was hard work that was done in muscle. Today, of course, the GDP figures do have washing machines, fridges, everything you can name in the house is bought in and therefore forms part of output, as does childcare that is provided that you pay for. So GDP is the sum of all that's produced in a country as long as it is in the marketplace. And that's the important thing. So it adds up to the value added by each firm or unit in the country. Okay, so if you buy in, for example, a series of computers in order to do your work, the series of computers belongs to the company that comes in as the output of the company that supplied you, and it's your value added as your company that is added in to the total. The gross domestic product of a country is different from the gross national income, and in truth, for a country like Scotland, it is the gross national income that we should be thinking about. Gross national income, I don't remember being mentioned at all in the referendum, but it's the sum of all the stuff that's produced by a country's citizens. And you have to take off from GDP those payments that are made to the rest of the world. And you add in any money that we get from the rest of the world. So, for example, if in the old days, Coates, who was a big thread company, if it had factories over in India, Pakistan, and the profits were earned there, they would come back to Britain, to Scotland, and so they would be attributed to us. But the stuff that's here, that is actually owned by people outside the country, is taken off our gross domestic product. Okay, can anyone think of what some of these things might be, which would substantially reduce Scotland's gross national income? It's whiskey in the jar, yes. Most of the whiskey is owned either by Japanese or Dutch based companies, and the profits go overseas. One of the worst offenders, as you well know, is Diageo. It's worthwhile looking at the history of Diageo. I haven't got time to do it just now, but of course we started off with United Distillers, joined in Bell's, bought by Guinness, and Guinness then whoever promised the head office, never got it, taken over by Diageo, who very quickly moved even the labels into foreign ownership, and the money goes, mainly the profits go to Holland. It's always worthwhile for these companies to look, where is the best place to put your registered office so that you minimise your tax? Any other product? Oil. Yes, most of the oil leaves Scotland without profits touching our site. My father used to say that, and my dad, he could drink a glass of whiskey without it touching the site. Anyway, and they really drank. So that's another big problem. This again was never mentioned very much in the referendum at all, and something like £20 billion worth of profits has to be taken off of our GDP because of the amount of money that leaves Scotland without our benefiting from it very much at all. Obviously we benefit from the employment out of oil, but in fact only 45% of the labour force in oil, only 45% of that labour force is Scottish, or live in Scotland. The rest of it is going to London or various other places where the large offices, headquarters are.
Margaret, could you say that again? 20 million pounds.
20 billion
pounds of profits must be deducted from our
GDP in order to create GNI, roughly that.
Could you read that, the definition again for GNI?
GNI is the sum of all produce owned by a country's citizens. So we do not own those profits that are owned by foreign investors or foreign companies in Scotland. And that means, well, can you imagine if that amount of money of profit is leaving, what sort of activities are likely to be going elsewhere, and we have no control over it as part of the United Kingdom? Okay, well, research and development is a very big one. If these companies choose to do the research and development, since they have the profits, and these profits are being earned elsewhere, they are likely to be searching the world to find the cheapest place to do research and development, and it's not going to be improving those very jobs which are needed here. Further, research and development, as you well know, produces spin-offs. So you could be actually thinking that your son or daughter is wasting their time doing astrophysics at the university, because what have you got to do with astrophysics? But that very research could have a spin-off which is directly relevant to our economy, or could actually be used to create a business, maybe nothing to do with astrophysics, but the very stuff is enough to create new enterprises, and these are lost altogether to Scotland.
So whisky is not owned by the county citizens, for example?
Oh, no way at all. But there might be one company in Scotland that owns whisky, but the others are all owned elsewhere. And this is another big problem, for example, in Diageo, as well as the fact that it owns whisky. The other big product that it owns is vodka. And where the malt whisky market has taken off, and it takes 8 to 15 years to mature, vodka takes 3 weeks, 3 days. So you get a turnover. So it has used actually the Scottish Whisky Association, of which it's a member, to get into countries like China, etc., quality band product, and under the wing comes vodka, which you can sell dramatically, and it's not good for us. Anyway, to move on,
of course they are supposed to pay tax, aren't they?
Oh, sorry, yes.
The income that we're supposed to see.
Well, we are supposed to get taxed from it, but as I've already said, it's a Dutch base of, I don't know what Diageo might say it's British, but all these labels are owned in Holland. We don't get them. We get our wages and we get any maintenance, etc. that we do, but it's they that makes decisions, and there's nothing we can do about it, about, for example, closing Kilmarnock's Johnny Walker, and yet you see it advertised all over the world.
Sorry, does that mean then, when the government put up the tax on whisky or beer, where does that go then?
Oh, that particular tax, which is a consumer element of it, comes to us.
The Treasury in London.
Yeah, that comes to Treasury in London. But when a bottle of whisky is going out, it's first of all got the basic amount before that final addition of tax. That basic amount will have a substantial bit of profit on it. That profit is going outside and is not taxed here. So that's what I'm talking about. Sorry, there's a video.
Yes, another question. So does that mean that if we were independent and these companies chose to leave, what we would lose all the employment that comes with it. We would not actually lose any of the profits they make or the taxes they pay, because we don't get them anyway.
We wouldn't lose that, yes. But one thing is, you can hardly sell Scotch whisky all the way around the world if in fact it's not produced here.
So they couldn't really totally leave.
Well, this is, I mean, I'm not a politician, but in the